Do you like my shirt today? Can't really see it when I'm sitting down, so I wanted to kind of show it off. No reason, it's not sponsored. I am not cool enough for that yet, but I will explain later in the video why I am wearing this shirt specifically today. So I recently bought an album, Dorothy's The Way, a rock album that mixes in country music elements. And while listening to it, I thought, this sounds vaguely like Christian music, but also kind of not. I looked at the back of the lyric booklet, at the acknowledgements, and sure enough, although Dorothy is more of an artist that just kind of happens to be Christian rather than a group pretending not to be to get airtime on other radio stations, but that's exactly what we are talking about today. During the 90s and early 2000s, there was a plethora of groups that were played on mainstream media that were actually secretly or not so secretly Christian groups. Now, I'm not talking about groups that happened to be Christian and were very outspoken about that, like Jessica Simpson and the Jonas Brothers were for a period of time with their purity rings and whatnot. But I'm talking about groups that were trying to pass themselves off as mainstream rock or just also happened to be marketed by Christian management for some reason. But during this time in history, it's weird to call 20 to 30 years ago history, President Clinton had a deal going on with the moral majority regarding sex education, ironic, and so Christian media, that is movies, TV shows, and music, started to cross over more often into the mainstream, especially ones that weren't explicitly discussing Jesus or religion or were doing so in a very non-combative manner. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to be clear. I myself used to be Christian. I was a Baptist specifically, and I used to rock out to a lot of these groups. So we're going to discuss the groups that we're talking about today in order, kind of from the most outwardly Christian to the least. And a common line of these bands that you will hear along the way is, we're a band of Christians, not a Christian band, whatever that means. But it was probably said to distance themselves from their audience. So first we have the group Stryper. They were among the first to gain mainstream recognition as a rock group, not just a Christian rock group. In an interview with Chris Jericho from WWE, that Chris Jericho, Stryper talked about how they are not really a Christian band. First known as Rock Regime, Stryper debuted in the 80s and got fame by touring with mainstream metal and rock artists, even appearing on MTV.
Back of To Hell with the Devil, they thank a couple who have done just that, Jim and Tammy Baker. Well, we came through, I think, what is it, South Carolina, North Carolina? North Carolina. We came through there and they rolled out the red carpet
Charlotte,
for us.
to be exact.
Yeah, Charlotte. They rolled out the red carpet for us. They put us up for free at Heritage USA, and, you know, they threw a big party for us after the show
This
we
is
did
before.
there. Right, this is before all that stuff came down, and you know, we don't have anything bad to say about them. You know, Jim Baker is a human just like the rest of us. You know, all of us can make mistakes.
You know, they're friends of ours. We
Yeah.
don't know them great, but, you know, we've met, and they were nice to us. So, you know, they did make a mistake, but, you know, we're not to condemn them.
Stryper frontman Michael Sweets states in this interview that they weren't brought up in the church. He says, "We were brought up on the streets of LA playing Gazaris, Troubadour, whiskey, and we became Christians. We just continued doing what we always did, but with a different message. We're really not a Christian band, but if people want to call us a Christian band, that's okay. I view us as just a rock band that decided to take a different path." In an interview with Audio Inc. Radio in 2015, Michael goes on to say, "We've always been a band that's gone out of our way to wave the flag that God is cool, and not only cool, but the creator of all things." He continues, "The band was never going to be as heavy as Metallica, but Stryper's roots are tied to heavy metal. We grew up on Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Van Halen and the Scorpions. And it makes perfect sense to me to mix Christianity and metal. It should be done more than the devil and metal being mixed, in my opinion, but for some reason people have this thing that metal is all about the devil." Nobody takes this seriously, that like, yeah, metal is the music of the devil. It's more like Christian protesters were always like, oh my God, this is satanic, specifically with Kiss and other groups in the 80s during the satanic panic and all of that shit. And a lot of groups just kind of went with it and took it to an extreme, but it's just for fun. But Stryper even had a difficult time trying to get on Christian radio in the beginning of their careers because of this fact that people thought that metal music automatically equals the devil. But they had this problem because they were trying to get on Christian radio. Now, why could that be? Could it be maybe because they were a Christian band? Somehow completely forgot about Creed while making this video. Creed was absolutely huge, and while they were not marketed as a Christian band per se, their main songs that gained popularity on mainstream charts definitely had Christian undertones. I believe the lead singer had come out at one point in time, as being Christian. He struggled a lot later on in life with mental health issues and things like that. So anyways, I'm not really sure where his faith lies today, but holy shit, can't believe I forgot about Creed. So putting that here. Thanks. Moving on, we have the group Skillet. I actually saw them live in, I think, 2008 at the church that I used to go to. In 1996, the band Skillet was formed with frontman John Cooper giving his mom the credit for his faith in God, which is very sweet. His mom later passed on when he was in his teens, and so he had his faith to kind of fall back on and help him during this time. Skillet has gone on to become one of the best-selling rock musicians of the 21st century with over 22 million albums in sales. Skillet doesn't denounce their Christianity at all. Frontman John Cooper even wrote a book called Wimpy, Weak, and Woke, denouncing utopian ideals and saying, "Woke people are ruining America." Geez, doesn't get any more Christian than that. Unfortunately, they would have been a really cool band to kind of fall out of that spectrum, but unfortunately, they did not. All right, so the third group on our list is Thousand Foot Crutch, which is a Canadian Christian rock band, also known as TFK. Thousand Foot Crutch was formed in Canada in 1995. The band's name, quote, symbolizes the point in our lives that we realize we can't make it on our own strength. TFK has worked with many other Christian groups, including Cutlass and Toby Mac. Their album Set It Off, especially the songs Puppet and Superfly, impacted both Christian and secular radio, and their song Move peaked at number 16 on Billboard's mainstream rock chart. In an interview from 2007, they said, "We've made music for everyone from the beginning. We really enjoy doing outreach stuff and just being out there and being with people that we're just talking to. But also at the same time, we're not for a second ashamed to play a church or anything like that." Again, frontman Trevor McNevin has said that Christian isn't a genre of music, but just who they are. At least there isn't anything too problematic that I could find hiding under their faux hawks. Unlike the next group, they also played at the church that I went to and consider themselves a band of Christians, not a Christian band. Formed in 2002, Flyleaf has managed to chart on mainstream rock, Christian pop, and Christian metal charts, and their debut album went platinum after selling over 1 million copies. In a MySpace blog post from 2012, remember MySpace? The band's guitarist Samir said in response to the question of whether they were a Christian band or not, "Yes, we are Christians, but there is a dispute among everyone, even us in the band. Not one that we fight about, but one that is lighthearted and fun to discuss. It's the issue of whether we are a Christian band or not, and what that means." Samir went on to say they would each give a different answer when asked the question if they were a Christian band. He summed up the MySpace post by saying that people, quote, can call them a Christian band or whatever they want, but that they know they are Christians. So yay for them, I guess. Although lead singer Lacey Sturm has been more outspoken about her faith since she left the group after the death of their sound engineer in 2012. She decided she wanted to spend more time with her kids, and then she returned to the band a decade later in 2022. Lead singer Lacey Sturm has also been very outspoken about her anti-abortion stance and has supported anti-abortion and very misogynistic Christian corporation Focus on the Family. She has also stated in past interviews that she, quote, used to be a lesbian, but left that all behind along with drugs and alcohol to follow Jesus. Look, I'm not going to rag on somebody else's faith or their sexuality journey, but when that faith and journey affects other people who do not believe the same thing, that's when I start to have a problem. Moving on, we have p.o.d. another band of Christians, not a Christian band, don't get it twisted. p.o.d, formed in 1992, has received 3 Grammy Award nominations, contributed to numerous soundtracks, and toured internationally. The group's name derives from the phrase payable on death, referring to how they believe that God has paid all their debts through Jesus' death. Frontman Sonny Sandoval said about being labeled a Christian band, quote, "We come from the hardcore scene where it was never broken down like that, because everybody is about something, whether you're vegan or whether you're straight edge or animal rights, social justice issues, whatever. That's what I love about hardcore, is you have the right to say what you want to say no matter what." He also said that he thinks sometimes people are offended by the group's Christian faith, but that he gets it. Quote, "I guess as we went along, we did see that there was a Christian music industry and there's a Christian industry over here and there's all this stuff, but to us that's, whatever. That's not something we ever wanted to be a part of. We just wanted to make music for everybody to listen to." p.o.d also got some pushback for releasing a song in 2012 that has curse words in it, but they still have maintained their Christian faith. Next up we have Underoath, who later distanced themselves from the Christian label altogether. Underoath was a post-hardcore/metalcore band formed in 1997. Underoath's members identified as Christian in their earlier years and stated during that time period that they were a Christian band. However, as vocalist Spencer Chamberlain explained in an interview in 2006, quote, "We're Christian but in a different way. We're not like your average Christian band," end quote. And he went on to say that their music is not like a Bible study or something. It's just about regular struggles. When they released their album Erase Me in 2018, the group really switched gears, even changing their Spotify profile to read, "The band who once openly and without apology professed their faith-based views on stage nightly have since moved beyond the realm of seemingly impenetrable polemics. At various junctures, Erase Me illustrates those moments of sanctuary, anxiety, betrayal, and conflict that inevitably arise when humanity grapples with belief systems." The lead song from their album Erase Me, which drops the group's first F-bomb, did get some flack from Christian communities for doing so. Spencer then said in another interview later that year some things that sounded like he had deconstructed from his previous faith. Quote, "With my journey and my role playing in a Christian band, I held a huge burden and I got burnt out badly and was treated awfully. I'm not saying religion is wrong for everyone, but for me it was wrong. It ruined my life. It turned me into a drug addict and people were awful to me the whole time. I never felt more alone in my life than when I was a Christian." Spencer went on to say that the song describes not being a victim anymore, which is very relatable as someone else who has also left the church. "I went through my own deconstruction in 2015 when I realized I was queer, hence the shirt." Funny story, I actually wore this shirt once at a place that I used to work after my deconstruction, after I had left the church and everything. And a guy came up who I recognized as someone that I had went to church with, but he obviously didn't recognize me. He saw my shirt and he said, "Do you actually practice witchcraft?" And I said offhandedly, "Yeah, I dabble in tarot cards. I like crystals. It's not a religion to me. It's just something fun to do every once in a while." And he looked horrified. And I just thought it was super funny because he obviously didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. It's just crazy how much doing something like leaving a religion, I guess, can change how you look to other people. Next up, we have Switchfoot. Also, again, a Christian by faith, but not by genre band. Switchfoot was formed in 1996. They have always been signed to secular record labels, including Columbia, Atlantic, and Vanguard Records. Switchfoot's lead singer, John Foreman, has said, quote, "We've always been very open and honest about where the songs are coming from. For us, these songs are for everyone. Calling us Christian rock tends to be a box that closes some people out and excludes them. And that's not what we're trying to do. Music has always opened my mind, and that's what we want." After the release of their album, The Beautiful Letdown, the band temporarily stopped playing at Christian festivals and doing interviews with Christian organizations as they found the speculation about their faith to be distracting from their music. But they did return to the Christian scene about 3 years after that and even compared the Christian undertones in their music to the Christian undertones found in mainstream books like The Chronicles of Narnia. John Foreman has also went on to voice his support for the LGBTQ+ community, so hey, that's pretty metal in my book. Next up, we have Lifehouse, who has philosophically disagreed with the label of Christian band. Formed in 1996 and hit mainstream fame in the year 2000 with their song Hanging by a Moment, which peaked at number 2 on Billboard charts. Lifehouse said in an article in the Oklahoman from 2001 that singer-guitarist Jason Wade had stated that the group didn't identify as a Christian music band because it was too stifling creatively. He said of friends under Christian labels that, quote, "It's sad because if a song feels too mainstream to the label, they'll have them go back and write lyrics that make it more obvious, you know?" Wade continued, "They'll actually tell them what to put in their song, and that kind of kills the artistic side for me. I could never have somebody telling me to replace one of my lyrics for the sake of a marketing tool or whatever." Wade went on to say that he purposefully wrote vague lyrics to appeal to more people, which I guess worked because Hanging by a Moment was huge, and certainly not just a moment. And last but not least, we have Evanescence. Formed in 1994 by keyboardist and singer Amy Lee and guitarist Ben Moody, Evanescence debuted in 2003 with their first studio album, Fallen, which gained 2 Grammy Awards for them. Evanescence made a huge impact on the emerging emo scene, even inspiring a Neopets copycat website, Sabata Pets, which could be a video in and of itself. Let me know in the comments if you'd want to see a video on that. Amy Lee and Ben Moody originally formed the band after meeting at a Christian summer camp, but after an interview shortly after their first album dropped, the group used profanity and made clear that it does not want to be known as a Christian act. Ben Moody was then quoted in Entertainment Weekly as saying, "We're actually high on the Christian charts," and I'm just like, what the fuck are we even doing there? Their albums were then swiftly pulled from Christian music stores and from Christian music charts. You see, they had also been being managed under a separate group from their main management, Wind Up Records, which specifically handled Christian band releases. But these business deals were quickly pulled as well. Fallen had actually gotten to number 1 on the top contemporary Christian album charts. Wind Up CEO Alan Meltzer then apologized for, quote, "an unfortunate and embarrassing situation," and vowed that in the future the label would scrutinize Christian artists' beliefs and commitment with even greater diligence before distributing them as Christian groups. Although here more recently, lead singer Amy Lee has actually been spotted at music events alongside Flyleaf singer Lacey Sturm, so who really knows what her religious views are, but I guess it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So despite what they say, saying that they were not a Christian group but just Christians in a group was kind of a smart marketing move because then they would get double the audience. However, that could be a double-edged sword because once someone who isn't Christian hears that they might be a Christian band, that can kind of turn them off from listening. Once someone who is Christian hears that the band is also Christian, they will of course be more likely to listen to them, especially if they're a parent looking for appropriate music for their children to listen to, for example. But much like a lot of us who once were Christian, these bands can go through pretty public deconstructions. But even if the members of these groups are no longer as outspoken about their faiths now as they once might have been, it's just kind of funny how some of them had tried to separate themselves from the whole Christian rock label. I mean, I certainly am embarrassed by some of the things that I thought and said while I was in church and have tried to distance myself as well, but I definitely have more of a compassion and understanding for why these groups would have wanted to do so. So in the end, am I still going to listen to this album from Dorothy that I got? Hell yeah. I mean, it's a good album, and one of the songs even features Slash on it. So, I mean, yeah, I'm going to listen to it. Why not? I can thankfully do that now without cringing so hard. As long as they're cool and they're not supporting right-wing groups or anti-abortion or anti-LGBTQ things or anything like that, then I don't see the problem with listening to them. But let me know your guys' thoughts on these groups down below. Did you know that any of these groups were Christian bands? Let me know. And also, while you're down there in the comments, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you get notified every time that I post a video here, which is usually once a week. And you can also like this video if you liked it, share it around with people that you know if you think they'll be interested in it as well. You can also check out my affiliate links down in the description if you want to help out this channel monetarily, but no pressure with that. And you can follow me on my social medias. It is at MelodyKnoxYT on Instagram and Blue Sky. I post behind the scenes pictures, videos, sneak peeks of what I'm working on, and of course cute photos of my cat Spidey. So if you want to check that out, please do. Otherwise, don't forget to drink some water, take your medicine, and eat something today if you haven't done those 3 things yet. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye!